A story is told of a little girl and her father at the store, and the little girl is asking for a nickel, begging her father for a nickel. And as she's begging for a nickel, the father gives her a $20 bill. And the girl rejects the nickel. Now, I don't want that. And the father still tries to give her the nickel so she can get some candy. And the little girl rejects the nickel. And he says, no, baby, you need to take this $20 bill because this will get you what you want. It's more than a nickel. And the little girl is screaming and crying, no, daddy, I want a nickel. I want a nickel. I don't want the 20, I want a nickel. And the father is telling her this $20 bill is so much more than what you're asking for. You can do more with what I'm going to give you than what you're asking for. But the problem is the little girl, like us, couldn't see that her father had more in his hand than what she was used to. Her father had a new experience for her. He was expanding her horizon, and she was going to see new things with the $20 bill. But because of what she was used to, what she was trained on receiving, she couldn't have the new experience of receiving all that God had for her. Saints, if you will allow me just for a few moments from that backdrop, I'd like to preach for subject of theme, seeing new experiences in God. Seeing new experiences in God. New experiences in God requires us to have a willingness to look away from the troubles of our past to look to the triumphs of our future. The problems of yesterday to the promises of tomorrow. This is a transition that is of a spiritual nature of purification. God, we know as the Jews were commanded to make this spiritual purification process, aka consecration, to look away from the troubles of the past to look into the triumphs of their future. And so as he's doing this consecration, what was realized to them is that, as we know, is a separating from some things. But separating from or separating to, it's really not an either or, it's a both and. It's separating from the things that are not like God, purifying ourselves for what has nothing to do with God's character and God's will, while purifying ourselves separating towards the one who called us. It is separating from a waywardness from God, separating into intimacy with God. Consecration, purification. He's calling them on this journey. And the reality is, this journey to the promised land has really been a journey from faithlessness to faith. It has been God's campaign as a politician, if you will, to get his congregants, the people of Israel, to believe that he's a faithful God. That the platform that he's been running on, that he's holy, faithful, and true, not man that he should lie, can be trusted. From the synagogues to the cities, that you can trust God is what he's trying to help them know. And in order for them to see that, they have to be purified from the waywardness of their past into the wonders of their future. From the messes of yesterday to the miracles of tomorrow. This is what God is trying to help them see. He's called them to consecrate themselves. Context on the Israelites will help us to see why new experiences in God was and is important. Why new experiences and unique encounters, interactions with God was and is important. Now we got to remember that their ancestors' dream had now become a nightmare. Joseph's dream, Joseph the dreamer, before MLK, before Martin Luther, Joseph the dreamer's dream of being second in command had now become a nightmare to the people, where they had went from being associated with the one in command to being under command. They had become a people that under a Pharaoh that didn't know Joseph, that didn't know prowess, that didn't know their lineage, didn't know their heritage. And so the privilege that they used to receive, they no longer received. Their dreams had become a nightmare. Has yesterday's dreams become today's nightmare? What you used to celebrate now crucifies you. Their dreams have become a nightmare. Their blessings of growth became their curse, because even though they were in a season where things wasn't working well, God still had blessed them to grow exponentially, increasingly without number. But that growth, sometimes when you grow, the things that God blesses you in becomes your curse, because everybody can't receive the growth that God gives you. They got to growing, and what happens is during this Middle Kingdom period of Egyptian history was showed that as they grew and became numerous, the Egyptians saw them as potential threats politically to take over Egypt or to join the Asiatic regime to take over Egypt. And so historians show that they really weren't even a threat with that because they weren't thinking of this because they had never been a people. They had only been property, and it's hard for property to think about being people. It's hard to what's been controlled to think about controlling. My daddy said it like this: it ain't no fun when the rabbit gets the gun. They had never even thought about getting the gun. They had always been the rabbit on the run. Have you always been the rabbit on the run that you can't perceive or conceive about getting the gun to have authority and control, to have privilege and prowess? Yeah. See, they were being burdened down and enslaved for something that really wasn't on their mind. It wasn't in their faculties to think about being on top because they had always been on the bottom. Remember we said they were grasshoppers in their thinking. They were slaves, meaning that they were used to being bought, sold, and inherited. Used not for their benefit, but for the benefit of others. For sexual benefit, for economic benefit. This is what they were used to. Their females were concubines. And not only were they bought, sold, and inherited, they were also loaned out. Their service would be loaned out to the guy across the street if it met the slave master's benefits or needs. See, they had never been a people with any kind of understanding or control over their lives. See, they had a history of experiencing increased hardship because of their worship. You can see this in Exodus 5, 7 through 9, where the Egyptian Pharaoh had increased their load labor for making bricks. He expected them to do more with doing less. He said, I want you to make more bricks with less material, meaning I'm going to take the straw. You got to get your own straw. What he had reduced them to is criminal behavior. Why do you say criminal behavior? Because sometimes your circumstance will cause you to go to do things that you ain't used to doing. You'll start relying on people, places, and things that has nothing to do with who God made you to be there outside the law and outside your worship. If we expected your house, God would say, I didn't call you to rely on this for your sustenance or your power for you to remain in who you are. Why did I say crime, though? Because when he told them, I'm not going to give you straw for you to build these bricks, I'm going to heavier the load and lighten your supply, they had to go out and rummage around in a land where they were property on other people's property to get their property to make what the owner demanded. Meaning that they didn't own any land, so any straw that they took was theft. See, sometimes your struggles will reduce you to doing things that are outside of what society deems okay. And then when they catch you and judge you, they don't look at why you did it. They just judge you for what you did. And I'm not saying your why isn't wrong, but God says sometimes he understands your what isn't wrong. But sometimes God said, I realize that your why is what made your what occur in the first place. There's some times where you're going after things that you're going after the what because you haven't understood the why. Yeah. They were people chasing the what? Personal relief, chasing identity, chasing and running away from oppression and the curses that are being put on their back that were unknown to them. And I said that it was about worship, right? That he took the straw because Moses had asked for them to go worship out there, release my people. You heard it. Let my people go. So it is written, so shall it be done. Pharaoh didn't write it and he didn't want it done, but God says, so shall it is written, so shall it be done. Let my people go. And the Pharaoh got angry about this and said, oh, they're idle. You got time to worship? So that if you got time to worship your God, while we got 10 or so over here, you should be worshiping. Heavier their load and lighten their supply. Make them make more bricks and with less supply, less straw. So now they got double the load. Not only do they got to make more, but they got to walk and look for the bricks to the straw too. So it's not just that they're making a higher number. They got to walk further to get it and take the risk of getting killed for being in somebody's backyard whose yard they shouldn't be in. A history of experiencing increased hardship because of their faith. See, have you ever felt like worshiping God was idol worship? Have you ever been like Pharaoh and people talked about doing more for God and you saw that it's something that was meaningless? You know what idol is. It's meaningless time. It's the devil's workshop. And so what Pharaoh was saying, that you worshiping God is the devil's workshop. You had an idle mind going worship a God that we didn't authorize or ordain or endorse. See, sometimes that's what the world does. It tells you that when you go to do more for God and you don't do what benefits the culture or benefits the culture that you were raised in, benefits the house that you come from, benefits the pocket that you put your hand in, then you look at it as idle time. That's the devil's workshop. It's not the thing that I got time for. That's not going to raise me up or keep me secure. See, Satan was using Pharaoh to try to let the people know, to make them become pessimistic about trusting God to be their supplier, to be the I am that I am, the I am all that you need. See, Satan is in the backdrop all along. He's in the background, running beneath the surface. He's the one that's motivating all of these things. And so they had a history of experiencing hardship and pressure and oppression because they wanted to worship the true living God. And their worship was deemed as meaninglessness. But remember, I said that it produced this hardship, produced pessimism, because when God said, I'm about to redeem you, I'm about to restore you, in a chapter later, Moses said, I'm about to redeem you. I've come to help you. And guess what? The people, it says that because of their broken spirit and the hardness of their labor, they didn't believe Mo. They didn't believe that God was going to deliver them. Now, we don't want to be too hard on them, because the reality of the matter is what's happening is, as historians tell us, scholars suggest, is that they were looking at God like we look at God sometimes, meaning that God came in and said, I'm going to help you. But when God said he was going to help them and deliver them, they had been in slavery for 400 years. So their question on deck was, if you're going to help us now, my big question is, why didn't you help me then? So the fact that I got suffering that I can identify with, you hadn't helped me in the past, how can I trust you now and for the future? And so God was saying that when God doesn't help you, here it is. When he hasn't helped you in the past, which he know he has, but you didn't see the help that you wanted, it's because God is doing one of two things, as old Tony Evans says. He said he's either getting you ready for your blessing or getting your blessing ready for you. He's saying that what God is doing is a testimony. It goes beyond your purview. It goes beyond what you think should happen and when you think should happen and how you think should happen and where you think should happen and who you should think should happen with. They were struggling to believe God would help them now because he hadn't helped them then. And on top of all of that, if that wasn't enough, they were mourning the death of their president, Mo. In reality, in simple form, the reality is that because Moses was dead, they believed that if Moses dead, God's got to be dead. But he's alive, as the movie says, right? As the song said, but God is alive. The point is that they're saying that the person that they used to see God through, if we don't see God through Moses, so if Moses is gone, if God couldn't keep Mo here, then that means that God ain't here. Well, what's that thing where God is used to blessing you and where you used to seeing, that person used to hearing from, where it's not on deck anymore, it's not flowing like it used to flow, and it's caused you to look beyond them to actually question if God was in that thing at all. See, they're stagnant and mourning, and God understands what's really on deck as they're looking at this river flood, because that's the thing that's on deck right now. Not only are they mourning, not only are they dealing with past traditions of trouble and trauma, they're dealing with their present-day situation of this flood ahead of them. And today, God is not coming to deal with them to move out of themselves as we talked before. This time, they're moving on to a new experience with God. And so that's what the issue is. And so we said that they need to see a new experience because their outlook is bleak. That's why they need a new experience. But how do we know this consecration thing we've been talking about is seeing newness with God? How do we know the Israelites, he was trying to show them something new in God? Well, our first point of emphasis before we go too forward is, in order for us to have a new experience with God, it helps us to understand that those things come off the revelation of new realities with God. New experiences with God bring about new realities with God. It has to be a new reality with God. Verses 3 and 4 help us understand that. It helps us understand that their movement was based on seeing this ark, right? Watch this. Here it is. In verse 3, it says, as soon as you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priest, then you shall set out from your place and follow it. Yet there shall be a distance between you and it, about 2,000 cubits in length. Do not come near it, in order that you may know the way you shall go, for you have not passed this way before. As soon as you see, look at that phrase now, those phrases, as soon as you see, then you shall set out and follow it. These three phrases, as soon as you see, then you shall set out, and then the third one is and follow it. These three phrases opens this up, realizes that it's a cause and effect scenario that has described the methods of Israel's progress to enter this promised land that God has offered them. Now, we've talked about the slavery. Let me say a little bit about this promised land so we can understand that this is about redemption and restoration. They've come from everything that I just said, being pressed upon, made to do more with less, made to commit crimes, to steal, to just kind of to make ends meet, right? And so the reality is that God is now saying that I'm taking you into a land that you're going to benefit without labor. I know your labor has been unbeneficial as you were a slave, that you had to work for any and everybody and get nothing out of it, but get chump change, if you will. He said, but I'm taking you to a land where you're going to do less and get more. Because figuratively, as he says, flowing with milk and honey, he said, these are blessings that you didn't produce. See, I know you haven't gotten what you produced. You haven't been paid what you earned. But God said, I'm about to get you what you didn't work for. I'm about to pay you for more than what you worth. He did this promised land. They've been 40 years on this journey, and God has them on the brink of it. And so because of their continued hardship, the ups and downs of life, the ebbs and flows, they've got pessimistic and doubtful about God. And so what God is saying, I've got you here, but I don't need you to look at this flood and think this flood is the thing that's going to take you out. This flood, this Jordan River, this thing that you're facing right now is not, hear me now, is not the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. It is not the straw that broke the camel's back. This is not that one thing that's going to seal the deal and break you down for good. God said, I'm carrying you over. I brought you to take you through. And so this is what he's letting them know. But he's doing this to reveal a new reality. Those phrases say, as you see, it's this cause and effect reality. See, it consisted more of a prompting of action from them that characterizes an ongoing action. See, it wasn't a temporary thing. See, they weren't supposed to start with God and stop with God. You know, it wasn't that go again, on again, off again thing. It wasn't that. No. See, God was trying to take them to where he was walking them to get them in a new reality with him. That's what God was trying to do. He was trying to show them that there's something more that they need to see in him that they hadn't seen. And so as he does this, see, he wanted them to remain in a cause and effect relationship, meaning that what you see me do, you do. As I move, you move. He said that you need to follow it because it emphasizes that they are to follow the ark, not temporarily, not haphazardly, but eternally, continually, persistently, consistently. He said you got to keep following that. Not on again, off again commitment. Have you ever had on again, off again commitment with the Lord? I mean, I know when you own, you hot, you like Mike Jones. They all on you. But when God is doing some things, he's Mike Jones. You all on him. But soon as things turn, you act like you don't know him again. You off again. God said, I need you to not have this haphazard reality, this haphazard relationship with me. And let me say this real quick. A lot of times our relationship with God mirrors our relationship with people. That's right. See, we think sometimes that we just on again, off again with God. But the reality is we a lot of times are on again, off again with people, meaning that we'll treat God the same way we treat people. If we love God because God gives us this, we love people because people give us this. If we worship with God because God has supplied our need, then we'll worship and fellowship with people because they supplied our need. And as soon as they do something we don't like, then all of a sudden we off again. See, I'm trying to show you that what you do vertical is showing up horizontally. Yes, it does. It's showing from heaven on the earth. The way you treat God, when you have a disconnect with God, a lot of times you'll be disconnected with people. See, that's the reality is that we got to understand that God is trying to get things right. So we'll keep trying to get the horizontal right and the vertical be all messed up. God said, no, if you'll get the vertical right. And see, if you'll honor God, then God will cause you to be honored by men, among men. See, this is what he's trying to say. See, he's trying to let them know that their issue with people still was a spiritual matter, that they were dishonoring before God, so dishonor came to them amongst the people. So what is this thing that he tells them to see? He said, I need you, as soon as you see the Ark of the Covenant, the Levitical priest carrying the Ark of the Covenant, you set out from Shittim. You move, right? Move from your place. The Ark of the Covenant is this wooden chest overlaid with gold. See, it contains the 10 Commandments, the law, if you will. But it served both a practical and a symbolic purposes. It was instrumental in both the rituals and the miracles. The Israelites, both their worship and the miracles, the great things, the things that they were called to do and the things that God would do that they didn't expect God to do. The Israelites believed this ark was symbolically Yahweh's throne. It was where the king rested. When you get to his throne, you are in his presence. Simply, it was God's presence amongst the people. And so God was saying that as you see my presence move, you move. Right? See, the temptation is we want to move without God. Notice he tells them, stay a distance away. As you see this cause and effect, as you see God's presence move. Henry Blackaby in his book, Knowing God, says that experiencing God says that one of the first things you want to do to get to God is see where God is working and get a part of it. Join in. See, he's telling them that I'm about to show you where I'm working. I need you to get a part of what I'm doing. See, but watch this. See, he's no longer leading in presence. He's no longer leading the way he used to. Here's the new reality. Because today we're used to the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night. Remember, the pillar of cloud by day would protect them from the sunstroke by day. And the pillar of fire would protect them from cold by night. The pillar of fire would also of cloud would move by day, give direction and protection. The pillar of fire at night would give both direction and protection as it would bring light, but it would also give direction as they move forward. But would not just protect them from the fire above or the sun above in the day. It would protect them from the Egyptians that was coming against them. God is always multifaceted in how he's interacting with us. He said, I am that I am. I am whatever you need. He said, I'm your direction, telling you which way to go and when to go, but I'm also your protection, keeping what's coming toward you from getting to you. Also keeping you from getting in what you would have got into had not been going before you. That's right. He says that the Ark of the Covenant is going before you in this land, in this water. The struggles that you're facing right now, God is already in that thing. See, what you got to do is while you're facing the struggle is look for where God is at in the midst of it. See, he said, is the ark moving? See, a lot of times we want to look at the ark. Look at the trouble. We want to look at the flood. God said, take your attention off of the flood and look for me. Yeah. I almost heard Tupac on that. Look for me. God said, look for me. That's what he said. See, the client, it was guidance and direction. That's what he's trying to show them. But see, here's how we really get it. This following complex, because see, faith has this ability to move us from unfamiliar arenas of life, to move us from familiar arenas of life into unfamiliar territories. Yeah. To move us from familiar things, familiar people, familiar places, familiar resources, to unfamiliar. Yes. I hear Paul in Ephesians saying he's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all we could ask, think, or imagine. From familiar, from used to unique and unusual. Yeah. Yeah. This is what faith does. How do we know that? Because notice he said, follow it, right? At the end of verse 3, I think it was verse 3, he said, follow it. Look what he says. He said, as soon as you see, I don't highlight my Bible too much, it's hard to catch it. And he commanded the people, as soon as you see the ark of the covenant of the Lord your God being carried by the Levitical priest, then you shall set out from your place and follow it. That last phrase of verse 3, and follow it. You know what's interesting about follow? See, he's saying following God would equip them with their awareness of the mission. See, they were lacking awareness of the process he was taking to them and what it was going to be like when he got them there. But see, it also has this nuanced meaning. Here it is, that whatever you follow, you're actually pursuing. That's right. He's reiterating that this Ark of the Covenant, though this is a new reality, I'm not leading you by the pillar of cloud by day or the pillar of fire by night. I'm not doing it the way I used to do it. I'm not walking with you in your comfort zone. I'm calling you out of your COVID convenience and comfort. I'm telling you, I'm doing a new thing. Do you not perceive it? He said that I'm trying to show you that again and again, no matter that I change the method, the principle is still concrete. Follow me, pursue me. See, the temptation is for us to pursue the problems. See, they were tempted to look at the river, to focus on that thing that was the problem, try to figure out how they could overcome it. See, they would try, the thought was to go into their own ingenuity, their own intuitiveness, to take their own initiative, to pull themselves by their own bootstraps, to do what their parents used to do, their friends used to do, what they're saying do right now. And God said, no, in order for you to get into the promise, it is as it is right now. You are to pursue me to get to where I'm taking you. Though I'm using new methods, this new reality, I'm still the same God. Jesus is the same yesterday, today, and forevermore. He says, follow it. Whatever you are following, whatever you are trekking behind, you are actually unknowingly pursuing that thing. See, he's calling them to a greater intimacy with him. The temptation is what we generally do is become more intimate, more knowing about our problem, more acquainted with what we fear and what we worry about than who we should be worshiping. Yeah. See, God said, follow it. He said, follow this ark cover, follow my presence. That's me in that box. God said that if you start looking into that thing like Moses had to do when he called him at the burning bush, it said once Moses stopped to check it out, then God spoke. See, when you start to inspect the thing that's your problem, stop looking for what they're trying to do and try to look for what he's doing through them. See, if you look for what he's doing through them, you'll see him and then you'll be able to follow it because there'll be more revelation, more knowledge, more understanding, more comprehension about what God is doing. And in some way, somehow, what you thought you had to go over, God has parted and let you walk through. See, he said, you got to pursue me. And why does he want you to pursue me? Let me break this down real quick because the new reality takes us into new arenas. Because notice he says this in verse 4. He says in verse 4, yet there shall be a distance between you and about 2,000 cubits, where it says a half mile in length. He says, so 5 blocks. He said, do not come near it in order that you may know the way you should go. In order that you may know the way you should go. Here's the interesting thing is this. Now, scholars, sometimes they rush ahead because they're so scared that we'll forget God's holiness, and they'll bring out a point that's really not what the text is saying is a primary point. Most scholars, when he says stay away from it, they bring up the point about the holy regulations about not getting too close to the Ark of the Covenant, something that happened with David and them years later where they were trying to bring the Ark back, and they touched the Ark and they died. That point is there, but that's not the primary point. And how do you know? I'm not going against them per se, unless they're going against what God has said. God says that here's why he says it. That word, that means because. He said that you may know the way you should go. So he's telling them that the reason he doesn't want them to get too close to the ark, to God, is because what the temptation is, you'll get ahead of God. You'll get ahead of God. See, sometimes we'll get so holy. We'll be so holy, there will be no earthly good. See, we up in the clouds and up in the atmosphere that we can't help people that's walking day to day, step by step. This is a step-by-step consistency thing, but you got to remember, you're still following him. You're not trying to be beside him. You're trying to still follow him. You got to see him at a distance, recognize there's a difference between you and who he is, that the understanding you have is for where you are, not for where he is. If God is up here, his understanding is transcendent. It means it's above, it's overpowering. He sees all of it. He's holistically seeing everything, but he gives it to us in dispensations, in amounts, in degrees that we can handle it in our lowly earthly bodies. So the reason you don't know it all right now is you know enough to take the next step, not to take every step. He said, don't get ahead of God. He said, why? Because though I've been this way before, you ain't never been here before. And so don't try to, I know they say, act like you've been here before. Don't do that with God. Don't do that with God. Don't act like you've been here before with God. Don't act like you got faith that you don't got. Because there's some trials that you'll face that your faith ain't never dealt with. And you'll be walking out talking in faith and being in fear all along. Oh, God's going to do it. I'm blessed and highly favored. Let me stop here for that one. When people say I'm blessed and highly favored, do you realize that's redundancy? You say, why you say that, Pastor? Blessed means favored. Right. Okay. I'm blessed and highly favored. You just said I'm blessed and highly blessed. No, you already favored. You are blessed and favored. When you say I'm blessed, you said you favored. God's favor don't need a highly on it. It's already high because he's high. He's the most high. So it's a regularly scheduled program. My bad for that commercial. that infomercial. God is just saying, don't get ahead of God. Don't you try to act like you've been here with God. Yeah. Because acting like you've been here with God on the way to the promise will create. Keep a good distance. Keep right perspective of who he is and who you are, what he knows and what you know. Right perspective. It's all centered around that word no. Just give me 3 minutes and we'll get us out of here. He tells Joshua, I'm about to exalt you so that they will know that as I was with Moses, I'm with you. Right? That word no means that they would understand and comprehend. But the reality is there's a nuance to that too that means it's a faith issue. He said to know is to believe and to believe is to know. See, he said that they will believe that I'm with you. Because remember I said that when Mo died, they thought God died. When the vessel died, they thought God died. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation. I was in a church, I told you before, back in 2003, and the worship leader, I shook his hand as he was coming into the sanctuary. About 7 to 8 minutes later, not knowing this brother would drop dead, leading the church in worship and high praise on the first Sunday of the month. If you've ever been to church worshiping first Sunday, and we had the best choir at that time in the state, maybe the world, and I put them up against everybody. Hands down. They to the throne. I don't mean like they were in the church. I ain't talking about the Stella, whatever it is. I'm saying that they were bringing glory to God, that we were watching God move in mighty ways when God would use them to create an atmosphere of worship. But lo and behold, as he had that thing rocking, God called his name. God called his name. And I just shook his hand 7 minutes before. What am I saying it for? Because when he fell dead, and my eyes were closed because I was worshiping, but people that saw it, that was looking at him, said that, man, he was gone before he hit the ground. Yeah. And I remember that as we sat in there, we were wondering what to do. We all in there bewildered what to do. But I'm sitting there still closed my eyes. God said, worship me. Yeah. Worship me. So I started worshiping and praying and screaming out with my eyes closed, giving God the glory. The next thing that happened is that God started getting the glory. The paramedics came in and took him in to do some more treatment, whatever he's going to do, and got him out of. We had paramedics on deck, doctors on deck, nurses on deck. They got him out of the scene. And you know what we did? We went back to worship and celebrating God at a moment where what just happened we could have predicted or overcome if the Spirit of God had not got in that thing, had not moved our past to realize that we were there to give God glory. And when God called his name, absent from the body, present with the Lord. So what I'm saying is that when Mo died, he's reminding them so that they would know that when that crisis hits you, when the person you thought was going to be here with you the whole way, when that thing that you thought was going to take you all the way through is gone, you got to recognize that God is still here. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. They need to know and believe that I'm with you. That thing that's trying to take you out, as I was with Moses, so shall I will be with you, and you will know and believe. You will trust and move. They don't believe God's in that thing. There's no reason to attack the flood that's trying to attack them. Yeah. But then he goes forward and tells them, not only do you need to know that you got divine leadership in him raising up Joshua, I mean that there's some things I'm going to tell Joshua to do. Joshua going to say it's going to happen. Joshua told them we're going to cross the water. When they put their feet in there, when God does this thing, you're going to see it was him, and we're going to go across on dry ground. What, Josh? You're going to do what Mo did? A different way, though, but we're going to do it. So here's the thing. He's letting you know, you got to understand in order to move forward, do you have divine leadership? Is God leading you? Is the person that you listen to being led by God? Because it makes all the difference. Sometimes the reason we don't move because we don't really believe it's God. We don't believe God is leading them. We don't believe what they preaching is coming from God. And so we can't make the movement across the water because we don't believe there's divine leadership. You got to go where there's divine leadership. That's the first marker. Is there divine leadership? The second marker is, how do you know I'm going to come against your enemies? Because he says those ites and the shylights, this is how you going to know that I'm going to conquer them. He's only using today as a confirmation about your tomorrow. He said, I'm going to overcome this flood. I'm going to part this thing. So as I parted this water, you know I got no problem with parting the land I'm giving you. That's right. I'm going to make this water open up. I'm going to make them acknowledge me and acknowledge you. See, when the water divides, that's an acknowledgement of who God is. That's God overcoming the thing. Remember, Jesus was walking on the water and said, peace, be still. Yeah. Remember, Peter said, man, you're doing an amazing thing. Bid me come. As long as Peter was looking at him, pursuing him, following him, coming to him, he was able to do things he had never done before. He was able to do godly things. He was able to do miraculous moves. Can you do miraculous moves? Did you used to do miraculous moves? Are you not doing miraculous moves right now because you refuse to follow him? You don't want to get intimate with him. You don't want to pursue him. You pursuing what they said you should pursue. You going after what pays you instead of what prays for you?
My God.
Walked on that water because God is always commanded to step on the water to show he steps on everything else.
Right.
And so that's what he does. He said, I'm going to open up this water, make it acknowledge me so it acknowledge you. What is he doing? He's sharing his glory with us. When God gives us a promise, he's sharing us his glory. He said, I'm going to make you known because if they see you and you're known, that means they know me. That you may know that what I'm doing today has sealed your tomorrow. If you will trust God today, you will see him faithful tomorrow. Tomorrow. God is so bad with that thing in Matthew chapter 6, near the end of the chapter, he said, don't worry about tomorrow because today got enough problems. But then he said, throw tomorrow away. He said, no, I already got that. I just need you to pursue me today. He said, you trying to pursue tomorrow and you can't deal with me today. You trying to go after store up and get what you want for tomorrow, and you losing everything that's going to get you through your tomorrow today. New realities, new experiences, new realities of God. Those new realities take us to new arenas in God. You have not been this way before. For 400 years, they were unredeemed people. And so as he's taking them across this Jordan, they got battles ahead, but he's telling them this battle is going to seal the rest of the battles. Because he's telling them that problem you got today won't be your last problem. That's why he mentions the ites. He just said, but if you'll trust me over this problem today, you'll never face this enemy again. Remember what he told Moses at the Red Sea as I close? He said, this enemy that you see today, you shall never see him again. And notice they were on a cul-de-sac then. They were at Pi-Haroth, and the waters were there, and they had nowhere to go. The enemies was closing in, and they didn't even realize that God had brought those enemies. God had brought you to where you are right now. What you're facing right now that's trying to take you out, let me go ahead and help you. God either allowed it or he caused it. Either way, he's over it, and he's in it. He's in it. And he can handle us questioning why he's in it. But he's saying, I've allowed this. I let you go like I did with Moses and them. I brought you to this cul-de-sac, to this dead-end street. Because a lot of times our dead end is really not an end. It's a beginning. Our dead ends a lot of times are life beginnings. God opens up that cul-de-sac and says, Mo, point that way and command that water to part. And the wind starts getting to work. And he says, this thing that you facing right now, you'll never see again. These Egyptians, you'll never see again. And he used what was trying to take them out to take them out. Their enemy was brought to destroy them as a setup to be destroyed. And then later he brings the water without the enemy. He says, I'm going to do the water this time as a trust factor for you and your enemies that's coming after that. He doesn't take out both at one time. It's a process. Because now you're actually going into what God has for you. And God is not treating you like a child anymore where he's just waving wands and opening up the sea. You can't just give an amen prayer and show up every now and then and God just moved that thing. God is expecting pursuit of him now. Because the promised land requires process. Yeah. Process of faith. You got to continue following him. You can't use that 3-year-old approach no more. Hallelujah, and praise him and leave him at the door. No. You can't just give him Sunday and then Monday through Saturday, and then you on everything else. God is not cool with that no more. And God had told them that if you turn back, I'm going to start touching you like I touched them. He tells them, the diseases I brought on Egypt, I will bring on you. Yeah. He said, if you get in this land and you act like I didn't bring you here, I'm going to wreak havoc on your life. I'm going to start making your money fall apart, your health fall apart, your relationships fall apart. I'm going to hit your children like I hit their children. See, this covering thing, we don't really think about it because we're so far removed. God is telling us as his people, I'm covering you. I'm protecting you from seen and unseen issues. But he's saying that if you keep thinking I'm going to let you do whatever you want to do and call yourself my people, I will come at you. And you know how God comes at us? God comes at us just like a coward that we in the hood said it was going to fight with is what they do. Cowards step up, man, let's get him. You go out there, go to get him. Coward be back here. Let me tell you of a time, and I'll wrap it with this illustration. I was at a club on 34th and High School Road. I forget what these called, Hoosiers, I think it was, or something like that. It moved from out east to out west. And so I went in there, we came out, running our mouth. Shouldn't have been there, should have been home, my wife, my girl. But I was out there not being a good guy. We out there running our mouth and doing whatever. I was a liar, as me and my wife talked about back then, before Christ. And so, here's what happened. I come out, two dudes are fighting. One of my partners starts talking to the dudes fighting, man, y'all ain't about to jump him. Y'all ain't about to do this. Y'all ain't about to do that. So this is my partner. So what do? I follow suit with my partner. My partner, I start getting jumped. I'm fighting two or three dudes. And I'm doing fairly well. One dude tackles my legs from the back, so I got to go down. So I can't. I'm not doing well no more. But I'm handling my business at first. Not that I'm so great. I just got it. I'm handling my business. Tackles my legs. I'm down. Dude, I'm looking. I'm in my head. I'm like, where's my partner? Where you at? Come on, dude. He bigger than me. I start getting kicked in the back of the head. I'm running my mouth laughing. They kicking my head. My head is bouncing off the concrete. Forehead bouncing off the concrete. Now, you know my head's big already. I don't need no more lumps. My head bouncing off the concrete, bouncing off the concrete. So finally, I put my head down, just did like this, just took the body blows, right? Yeah. Police finally come. I get up. Here come a car before I can get up. I'm looking at headlights pulling up. I'm thinking it's police car. I look up. No, it's police before they get the headlights. I get up. It's my partner's car. Now, he was parked behind Domino's across the street. How you get over there? We on the other side. Like, and you heavy said, how did you do that? So, I just know we play ball. He went over the first down. Know that. So I'm just like, whatever. Hey, man, give me the pistol. So I'm thinking he went to get the pistol. So I'm like, man, give me the pistol. I'm about to get retribution. Man, I left it at the apartment. What? So exactly. My thought is, so why did you run to the car? So you started this fight, got me in it, and then left me. See, God is saying, look, we run after things that's not going to stand up and fight for us. So if we get in this land and act like something or somebody else did it, whatever you think is your source is just a resource. It will run out on you like he ran out on me. It will run out on you. And your head will be bouncing across the ground, and there'll be no God to pick you up because you left him, and he'll honor you as grown 3 times 7 and plus some. I will take you at your word. You said you didn't want to deal with me. I'm going to let it be eternal. And you will pay the cost to be the boss. So we need to see new experiences with God. These new realities with God that take us to new arenas in God. Let's pray.